Welcome back everybody to another episode of North Coast Craftsmen. My name is Dalton. Today we're going to be covering the second step in an epoxy pour. The second step is learning how to calculate the amount of epoxy that we will need to do our river pour. So sit back and relax. Today's calculus lecture is about to begin. Getting right into it, the first step is to find a board that fits the mold that we just built in the last video. Preferably find a board with a live edge on each side. Cut it down the middle so that the live edges will be in the middle where your pour is going to be. Then cut it to length. The boards that I chose to use are cherry. I chose cherry because these tables will be bedside tables when they're finished. So not only will they provide a nice place for an alarm clock or a cell phone, but could also provide a little midnight snack. Talk about a dual purpose. Once these boards are placed inside of your form, we now have to go back in time to our high school days and remember all the math that we purposely forgot. So, channel your inner time traveler and let's get started. Now the first thing that you're going to want to do when you're trying to figure out how much epoxy you're going to need is going to be trying to find the average width that your river will be. With a table this small, what we're going to do is measure down one side of the board every 3 inches and make a line. Once you do that, at those lines, you're going to measure across and see what the distance is. When you get the distance measured, write it down on the board so that you'll have it for later when we go to calculate the average width. Going back to our high school days, we will remember to find an average, you need the total amount of length divided by the number of measurements that we took. Now I'm finding the height and length so that we have those measurements later when we go to calculate the volume. So my average height was right around 1 inch and the length for both forms is 25.5. If you're having a difficult time remembering all these numbers, don't worry. I will show them to you a little bit later in the video and they will also be linked down in the description below. Another little helpful tip is to always write down these numbers on your board. You can't walk away with this board and misplace it versus a piece of paper where you can shove it in your pocket and who knows where it's going to end up. So write your numbers down on your boards. So now doing a little bit of math and taking the numbers that we wrote down, we find that our average width is 5.95 inches. Now we take all the information that we've gathered, put it into the omnicalculator.com app, and that gives us our liters. Next, I do the exact same thing for table number 2, and I find that we need a total of 4.961 liters to do both pours. We now know that we need roughly 5 liters of epoxy to do the pour. However, the part that we didn't take into account is that some is going to seep underneath the boards, and you're going to have to fill a little bit on the ends where the boards don't touch the form. So all in all, you're going to want to add probably 20% for waste that is going to either be sanded off or cut off. So with that being said, we're going to need around 6 liters of epoxy to do our 2 pours, and that should get us done. So what I suggest is adding 20% to whatever your final amount is after you do your volume calculation. Now that the epoxy has been calculated, we've gone through our math classes, we can now move on to actually pouring the epoxy, which is step number 3. So with that being said, this is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you all next week for step 3.